you mentioned before we started talking that you feel that you numbers go in and go out. So first of all, what do you think the best way of joining them is in together? And do you really forget numbers?
I do. I have to write them down. I'll tell you. So I think the best way to join numbers and stories together is to have a few numbers that tell the story, that illustrate the story. I love graphical representations of numbers. I'm not, that's not my forte, but I love when you see those things on, Twitter, and somebody has taken all the historical data and just brought to life whatever it is, the warming of the Earth's atmosphere or whatever, and you can just watch it happening in real time. What I do is I'll tell you a story full of numbers just to illustrate. So I do talks to schools. I do talks about space junk. I do talks to, primary school children to say, you guys are going to have to solve the problem that the grown-ups have caused, right? So, and one of the things that I talk about, a story I tell to try and get people interested in space, just as a topic, is to ask this question of, do you think we're alone? Now, the numbers in space are massive, huge numbers, and I can't retain them in my head, so I write them down. And so I say, this is what scientists estimate, right? There are about 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe. An average of 100 billion stars in each galaxy means that there are about 200 billion trillion stars. And that is a 2 followed by 21 zeros. And when you write that number on a slide or a blackboard, and you just go 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, the kids just think, that is a lot. That's just huge, massive, huge. So if that's how many stars there are, and scientists estimate that every 5th star, 20% of those, has at least one planet orbiting in it in something called the Goldilocks Zone. Scientists actually use this terminology. The Goldilocks Zone, as you might imagine, is not too close to their sun to be too hot to support life, and not too far away to be too cold. Earth is in the Goldilocks Zone of our star. And the question, this actually, Fermi was an astronomer who asked this question many, many centuries ago. The paradox, the Fermi paradox, if there are that many suns like our suns out there, and that many potentially Earth-like planets out there, in the billions of trillions we're talking about, where is everybody? So it's not really a question of when we are discovered by other forms of intelligent life, or we discover them. It's not a question of if. It's a question of when. It's a question of when. And if you put all those zeros down, the kids can kind of, both relate to, oh, I might not be the only kid on this planet and the only planet with life on it in this universe. So, but it's really, really big space. So, I think if you use some eye-catching numbers to make your point, then you can, it's a memorable thing. They might go home that night and write down that number for their parents and say, this is how many stars there are. And at least 1 in every 5 of those could have an Earth-like planet orbiting around it.